Hello and welcome to episode 180 of Just Keep Writing.
A podcast for writers.
By writers.
To keep you writing.
I'm Marshall.
I'm Nick.
I'm Brent.
I'm Jenna.
I'm LP.
I'm Sameem.
And I'm Wil.
We dragged that out a little bit. I like that. I'm stoked to have all of us back in the house again. It's been a while since we've had Nick. I feel like it's been a while since we've had Brent. And I'm just stoked to have you guys here. But I'm not moderating this episode. I'm going to hand it over to Jenna. We curated this little group on purpose because we're going to be talking about novellas this week. And Jenna's going to lead the fight, as they say. So
I get to ask all the questions because I've never written a novella. But
I'm glad you're doing it. Better you than me.
I'm super excited because this is my first time moderating. So,
yay! For real?
Yeah.
I'm so shocked by
yes, that
this.
is true.
I feel honored.
I haven't been here all that long, y'all.
That's true. Well, we're glad you're doing it. So what you got for us?
Oh, hello, listeners who are also here. And not just us talking shit. All right. Well, I thought we could start by throwing some flowers because it's always good to give people kudos, as well as use that to talk about like what it is that really gets you in a novella. So wanted to start by asking everyone, what are some examples of novellas that you think really nailed it? What did they do that you think really worked for that form? And yeah, so what makes an excellent novella for you? Wil has some examples right off the bat.
I would have to say Unnecessary Chaos by Brent Lambert, our very own. Yeah, but it's not even because like Brent's on the show. That's just an added bonus. I think why that nailed it was because it really, there was two points of view. And I think that's really hard to do in a novella. And it felt tight, tension-filled, and really magical. And it made you, even though it was a complete story, you really wanted to read more.
Marshall?
Yeah, and I'm not saying this because there's a TV show about it now, which the TV show is great. But I love the Murderbot series by Martha Wells. I feel like I was reading these books because I started some novella projects. And I'm like, what are some novellas I've been wanting to read besides Necessary Chaos? So I jumped into that, and the audiobooks were so freaking good. I was like, I just blazed through them all. And they're all different lengths. They're all different. And there's even some not novellas in there too. But the series was great. But I think why that form and that like Wil said, the tight storytelling, because it's focused on that one android telling a story, and it's super focused on what is going on for him in those moments. And each book has like a different crisis with some reoccurring characters. I don't know. I just feel like it was so well done and so compelling, and that's why I kind of like that format, because you can really hyper focus on what is going on for the character without. And I know Brent does a great job, but not having to jump in the other POVs. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I really enjoyed the series. So
LP and then Nick.
A couple things. Obviously, I want to co-sign Unnecessary Chaos because the density of world in that novella, it's so thick. It's so thick, and like you kind of forget that it's only like 40,000 words because there's so much world.
Okay, wait. Can we pause there for a second and talk about like how do you get thick worlds in a novella? Because I think we can use Brent as an example, but like,
I mean, let's ask Brent. Brent, how do you get thick worlds in a novella, sir?
Okay, I guess. Well, first of all, thank y'all so much for the kind words. I've always appreciate it. I guess for me, for a thick world in a novella, right, is I kind of approach it like I would any world, really. It's just you have to really make it seem like it. You don't spend a lot of time explaining every single thing. You only explain what needs to like actually be explained for the context of the story. So like there's one part in the it's the little touches, I guess. So there's a part in the story where they do some drugs. I really don't explain how these drugs are made or where they come from, or like, like I don't go into some long history about them. They just do the drugs and, you keep it moving. And there's parts where you have, they mention places they've been to. I don't go into like long diatribes about the places they've been to. You give just enough to create like a really powerful image, and you kind of keep it moving. And an example, another outside of myself, I guess, an example of that for me would be Neon Yang's Tenseret novellas. So I think there's 4 or 5 of them. I can't remember. Four. So yeah, it's a quartet. That is a really, really interesting world, and I think it does the same thing where it doesn't actually take the time to explain everything. It just kind of like, here's what it is. We're moving along. Yes, these people ride raptors instead of horses. No, I'm not going to get into the ecology of that. It's just the thing. These people live on a donut planet. I'm not going to explain how everything works, but I'll give you, a taste of it, basically. So I think if we're going to use like a meal analogy, I guess you just have to, it's like one of those sampler meals. You just get a little bit of everything, enough to make you feel full, but you don't necessarily like have like, and there's going to be like a portion of it that's the main course and like what you really dig into. So like with Necessary Chaos, I think it's the magic that really is like, I think the thickest part of that novella. That's really kind of like the world building portion that I think you get to chew the most on. But I still have enough about, this location, that location, and so on and so forth. I hope that made sense, but
made sense to me. And I really kind of love the image of a novella as a sampler meal. And you can have like a little bit more of the thing that is really, driving it for you, but you get like these hints of this huge world. Yeah. Okay. Nick and Will have been waiting a long time. So go ahead, Nick.
Done.
Wait, but LP didn't get to finish his,
LP.
though.
Okay, yeah.
Brent was
I
the first thing
interrupted you. Yep.
No. Well, no, I just wanted to, because we talked a couple months ago about Sophia Samatar's The Practice of the Horizon and the Chain, which I still don't understand how the fuck that did what it did to me, but it has this really interesting thing where it can 100% be like the first third of a novel, if it wanted to be, but also like happy that it ended where it ended. And the last bit was Chris Campbell has been doing writing about Afrocosmicism, thinking about Black people in cosmic horror. And so 2 of the books that he talks about are Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark and Flowers for the Sea by Zinni Rocklin. So I've been thinking about retreading those because this sense of like being very small in the world in the space of a novella, I feel like I don't see that a lot.
Yeah, I like that you're pointing out that The Practice of the Horizon and the Chain could be the first third of a novel, and that it ends on the kind of cusp of something powerful changing in the world. And I'm thinking of a couple other novellas that do that end on the cusp of something. I think Sameem, you pointed out that both that one and Sue Davies Okumboa's
Lost Art Dreaming.
Yeah, they both end on the cusp of revolution. Mm. And I think that there's something about that arc to the cusp of something that makes for a powerful novella in a way that like it wouldn't be the ending for a novel, but it works for a novella.
Right.
Okay, now Nick, who's been waiting forever.
I mean, are we sure?
I don't know. LP, are you done?
Look, I always have to try to raise my hand before Will, because generally he takes the one I want to talk about every time.
Get in there quick.
He reads 10 books to my one. So I'm going to bring up P.G. Djeli Clark's Dead Cat Tail Assassins. Will turn me on to that one, who I think, was that Brent that turned you on to that?
I don't know, but I read it when you guys were talking about it. That shit is amazing.
No, it was Devon.
Will were like simultaneously tackling it. Like,
yeah, we were reading it at the same time.
Yeah.
So I really like that one. And P.G. Djeli Clark's such a great writer on top of that. But this one resonated the most with me, mainly because I used it for research and learning. But something similar to that in like Brent's novella that I'm starting to pick up on is the density that you get to. Like, I'm paying attention to the impact of certain decisions and revelations just feels so much deeper because you don't have a lot of words to work with. So like Brent said, right? People are writing Raptors. I'm not going to explain it. It's there. You like it. Okay, let's move on, right? And I think when you get to the impactful moments in a novella series, especially with, the Dead Cattail Assassins, it's one of those where like it's so deep and meaningful in that moment that you're just like, oh shit, like, yes, like I got to keep going. And that's what like I've been starting to pull from the novella series I've been reading lately is like there's such a bigger impact to the story during these points that they just hit different than a novel.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I'm thinking a lot about that and like structure and how things hit and when things hit. Will, what would you like to say?
Well,
now that Nick has likely stolen yours.
No, he didn't steal mine because I'm widely read.
He has like 6 queued up and he's just tossing up the ones we mentioned because he's already read them.
No, but for a minute I thought you were going to talk about the one that I was going to. Ring Shout from P. Jelly Clark. Ring Shout is so
the one that someone has already mentioned, but keep going.
Oh, did someone mention Ring Shout? Was it LP?
LP did briefly, but you.
Oh, that's right, briefly. Because I kept. He did briefly.
It's fine.
No, it's okay.
No, it was just listed. Go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes when he talks, it's like Charlie Brown teacher, like. Rah, rah, rah.
Oh God.
I knew it was coming eventually.
Yeah. No, but. Well, you know what? The chain, the one that we read, was also so good. But let me go back to Ring Shout. That book haunts me. I think it is. I think about that book almost as much as I think about Octavia Butler's Dawn. And I know I talked about like as far as like our creative canon of like how much I think about Octavia Butler's book Dawn. I almost think about Ring Shout the same way. I think especially because of like everything going on right now. And I feel like Ring Shout is so streamlined, like it kind of just flows out and it's really tight. And I'm not just saying this because Brent's here, but I've said this before. And every time I talk to someone I mentioned, like a Necessary Chaos, there's so much packed into that world in a novella. And I think that's really hard to do because you can see the world building just by like one sentence that Brent will write. And that's really hard to do in a novella. And with Ring Shout, it was like it turns everything that you think is like going on in that world. It really changes it, and I really like it. But God,
I wanted to co-sign on what Will said because I can hear Will. There are so many flourishes that communicate that the world is much bigger than what's happening in the room. That you're just like, oh, okay. So it doesn't feel like a novella. It's a short read, but the world feels so expansive. And, Brent, depending on who you talk to, could be an overworld builder, but like it makes for such rich fiction.
I think one of the things that I really loved about Ring Shout too was the amount of solidarity and collectivity that was able to be built in the novella form as well. Sameem, did you want to talk about your Ring Shout movie idea? No. All right.
I want to
save that for another day.
I want to also mention something else too. Is like the reason I think A Necessary Chaos was so good. It was so tense throughout it, and I think it's almost the same type of pacing that Ring Shout had, where you're kind of just like wanting the world to expand out and want to know these characters like Ring Shout did. Because I feel like when you read Ring Shout, it's like those characters are like there, like they're fully formed. And I think that's really hard to do in a novella, short piece.
So I'm also interested in hearing the other side of this question, because I do think that there are really talented and brilliant writers who struggle with the novella form. And I was wondering if there are things that sometimes miss the mark for you in novellas. Like, what is it that happens or goes wrong in the novella or is not present? Or what is it that makes a novella not work for you? Nick?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first on this one. I think for me, what makes the novella work, it is going back to what is the message, right? Because I feel like that's where I get more out of a novella than I do like a novel, and even sometimes a short story. Where did you clearly express your message to me in that short of words, and do I understand it? Where it's missing the mark for me is when I don't have a clear theme, and it's like just a story to be a story. And maybe, and this is a preference thing. Let me just say that right off the bat too. Like, you know, if it doesn't work for me because I'm not getting your theme, then it just doesn't work for me. I'm probably not your target audience on that one. You know, and you know, it's hard to find a good Mormon story out there. LP, I see you talking shit in the chat right now. All right. It is one of those, like, I understand going into any short story or novellas, you know, read that I do, that I may or may not be the target audience, and I may or may not understand the impacts statements that are being come from this. And I think that's one of those things where, like, you either power through it or you don't. But when it comes to short stories and novellas, like, I have less critique for the ones I put down than I do a novel series, because the novel series is a whole different subject and world building and theme that goes into it that would make me put it down before I would even put down anything else.
Yeah, theme is really key for me too, actually. So that's something that I definitely read for. All right, LP, you sneaked your hand up right before Brent.
We were having thoughts at the same time. Yeah, I think one of the hard things about novellas is, like, we study novellas, but we don't study novellas in the context of novellas. We study short books with novels, right? And we know that novellas are like the idea of a novella isn't a new convention, but most books, you know, that we think about as classics now would be novella length now, because at some point publishing was like, we can make more money if there's more pages in these books, right? So think about Giovanni's Room, think about House on Mango Street, Ethan Frome, I'm trying to think of a non-white person one. Grapes of Wrath. I failed. Anyway, not Grapes of Wrath, Of Mice and Men. So having said that, books used to do this thing a lot, and now they've become kind of expansive. Novels used to do this thing a lot, and now they've become expansive. So what I'm finding now with novellas as defined by, like, SIFWA and the Hugos, like maxing out at 40,000 words, is like, I'm finding that short stories are tending to have more in common with novels, while novellas are tending to have more in common with flash fiction, in the way that flash fiction kind of lives in implication. And obviously not all novellas do this, but, like, when they do, it feels like I'm getting something. It feels like, it almost feels like the opposite of what Brent does, but with the same effect, where the world building isn't quite so expansive, but there are just these implications and your mind can just run with it. Neither is wrong, right? But, like, I wonder at, like, neither is wrong. I think that's just an example of when novellas can be closer to flash fiction, that they can be, like, super implicit with novels or short stories.
Ever since you made that comparison, I'm now thinking, like, oh, maybe I could write a novella.
Oh, you totally can write a novella.
You could.
You're almost
It's
done
going
with
through my
the
head.
book that's on contract.
I'm almost done. Almost done.
Yes.
Brent, and then Will, did I see your hand up? Yeah.
I think Marshall.
Oh, Marshall, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Brent first.
All right. So I guess for me, where novellas I've read where I felt like I checked out is because I need to care quickly about the characters, and because there is only so much room. And the way I think about it is like, it's the difference between listening to a single versus listening to a DJ set with like novels and novellas. With a DJ set, you can kind of maybe groove for the first 15 minutes. You might not necessarily be like vibing, but you're there. You're kind of like, hey, I'm committed. I'm gonna ride this out a little bit. Whereas with the single, if the single sucks, you're like, I'm not listening to that again. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same with the novella versus a novel. It's like with the novella, you need to make me care quickly about the POV that you're asking me to follow, through this story. Even though the story itself is going to be shorter, I do need to care quicker. And also too, I think where I also check out too is like, if I don't get catharsis, or if it doesn't seem like catharsis is going to happen, I don't necessarily need the ending to be happy or profound or any of those things. I just need to feel satisfied by the end of it. Like, I need to feel like it's what it proposed to me that it was going to do in the beginning, that it actually completes it by the end of the story, which is harder because there is less space to, you're operating in. But I think those are the two things that I think I've seen people maybe struggle with a little more in terms of doing the novella.
Yeah, that makes sense. Marshall?
Oh, Will was next.
Oh, Will was next. Now
no, you can go, Marshall. Go ahead, Big
honestly,
Daddy.
I was just going to add on to something LP said, because I teach high school, a lot of the texts that we teach are novellas. But I thought what he said was really interesting about how, like, I've been mentioning it the last several years, but right now I'm teaching Gatsby in my honors class. I just like teaching the novel. I always have some fun stuff I do around it. It's one of my favorites, but I tell them, I mean, this is short for a novel. This is a novella, right? This is like, but what I like about the story and what I think does a good job is the language and the placement of the characters and how specific everything is, right? And I think somebody said this earlier, but I think that's where shorter works sometimes miss the mark, is like, well, if you're not invested in the characters and what they're doing, like, or the context of the time period, like, you just kind of lose track, you know what I mean? And it's like, when you know the work is short and you're not getting into it, you're going to find something else to do, something else to read. So I don't know. I think that's why I've been dabbling in writing novellas a lot lately too, is just because I want to practice that kind of specificity of place and character as much as I can, and really hone in on the conflict of those one or two characters that I'm focusing on. I don't know. That's just, I was just thinking about that when LP mentioned that a lot of the classics are very short.
This raises a couple questions for me that are not on the list that I gave you. So surprise. But yeah, it makes me wonder about then what is the difference between gesturing in a way that opens the audience's imagination to the external world in a novella, and slimming down or paring down in a way that just makes it feel flat, if that makes sense. Because, LP, you were talking about how, like, I don't know if you mentioned Sofia Samatar's specifically in connection with this, but one of the things it does really well is gesture at all these broader things in the world and leave that for the reader to spin out into all the larger implications of the story that's happening through it. But do y'all have insights on, like, what it looks like to do the widening of the world instead of the flattening through gesturing at things? Will?
Oh, wait. So the question is, like, how do we, like, open the world in such a short form?
I guess that's the way I was interpreting, like, ways that gesturing works well without giving many details about a world instead of making the story feel flat. But maybe there's other ways to think about it.
Well,
I think that gesturing a lot.
I think Murderbot does this really well, actually, because, I mean, that book is hilarious to me.
It is.
But also deeply poignant. I think what Martha Wells did so good in those books is that she captures this sense of fun. Like, you're in space in an android. Also, the android is suffering from, like, social anxiety disorder,
Depression.
Yeah. And
he's
like
a disaster.
And all he wants to do is watch his soaps. Okay. And I'm just like, bitch, I get it. I just want to telenovela sometimes too. So that said a lot about the world. Like it said that even though we're in the far future and all these cool things are happening, life is still lifing. Um, beings are still going through like trying to just get by and just like leave me the f alone. That's what I have to say about that.
I'm gonna let Sameem cut in here because he hasn't talked yet.
Well, I'm not supposed to talk on this episode, so this will
Yes,
be really
you are.
quick.
You're already here. You're part of the intro. Go.
But I think, and I don't know if anyone said this already, but I think like in general, a really smart use of tropes is really helpful in a lot of these novellas. I think like Murderbot does this really well, where it is like maybe subtle critique of the genre in some ways, but also just really useful, like things that people will connect with very quickly. I can't remember the name of the show that is like the show that the Murderbot is obsessed with, but like that was really quick and easy to understand. Like,
Sanctuary Moon,
yeah, just like, and even if that's not your type of show, just like the idea that you're going to binge something and connect to it in these weird ways to distract yourself from life, it's just like very, very relatable. And so I think finding ways to do that very poignantly and very quickly and knowing just what's going to get to people in very short amount of words is really helpful.
LP?
Yeah, I think Sameem has his finger on the pulse with that one. Like, again, coming back to the practice, horizon, and the chain, we understand what a generationship is. And so the thing that filled that out, spoilers for the practice, the horizon, and the chain, you should be listening to our podcast and reading the books we talk about. I think what really fills that out is that it's not just a generationship. What we're getting is a stratification of a hierarchy of humans on this ship that looks a lot like slavery, right? And so that implication means something. What I was really intrigued by when we did that episode was Jenna and Ben Platic, who was on the episode that day. Y'all were really locked into the ways that like it reflected academia, and I was really locked in personally into like the experience of like upward mobility in spaces where I didn't have the social graces that the space demanded, and then I was chastised for that, right? And so it's interesting because that book ends up working on these two different levels that end up coming together, but people see themselves reflected differently. So you read it one way, or Jenna read it one way, I read it another way, and neither was wrong, right? And so it can be about, so tropes, yes. Though I hate tropes, but I love tropes, right? Because they're shorthand, right? But they can be a really quick way of setting other social dynamics that we're familiar with, right? Because I think one of the things I say, or I think about a lot, is that a single genre book is a waste of my time. Because if there aren't two genres working in it, then like it's in conversation with itself, or this old ass fucking book that I'm not trying to read any fucking way, right? So two genres playing against each other gives me something to be interested in. So in that case, it's one genre plus two social dynamics, and then it turns into a fantasy thing as well. And there's a revolution. This is made for me.
Yeah, what I think is cool there too is that you're pointing out the way that tropes can hold multiplicities in them. Like tropes can hold multiple worlds and ways of reading a story, or like in the stuff that Will's complaining about can just flatten into like this one interpretation maybe, or like you're only meant to see it one thing here and then we move on, instead of like this opens multiplicities. All right, Nick.
So I want to talk about characters actually on this one. Mainly because like I love character. If there's a bad character that I'm following, doesn't matter how deep the world is, I'm not interested. I think this goes back to what Brent said about earlier, like get me interested in the character first, right? And right away. I think, and this is from my lens, and if I'm using the wrong terminology, please correct me too. I immediately get thrown out when I know that a character has just been, for lack of a better term right now, reskinned. So taking gesturing to a certain character, but all you did was say, oh, they're queer now, but we all know what character this is based off of, right? Those are the things that turn me off, is when there's not enough nuance to the characters that make them feel believable. So you could have the deepest world in the world and get your setting right and get everything else right, but as soon as that character flaw exists, I'm out. And it doesn't matter the length of the work or anything like that. I'm out because the character's not nuanced at that point. And that's part of the impact, the emotion, like having the deepening of the world and the widening of the world is in that character and how they react to the world. So, Brent?
Yeah, you're also...
Yeah, you made me think about, and I bring this example up all the time. One of the best ways that I've seen, like, because I know what you're talking about. Some people out here will be writing stories where they clearly wanted to actually basically write fan fiction about this thing, but then they try to, like, you know, add a little diversity for some spice or whatever. When we know, like you're just a white person, you really want to write a white character, but you're trying to like throw a little bit on it. So I know exactly what you're talking about. But I think one of the better examples, this is outside of novellas, but one of the best examples of like actually really absorbing the idea that we're changing the identity of this character was Louis in the new Interview with the Vampire. Like that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you make him black, you actually made him black. It wasn't just like, oh, you know, this character is I want to be like get diversity points, so I'm just gonna say that like, oh yeah, they're queer, but you know, I'm not gonna interrogate that identity at all, or like, oh, they're black now, but in every other way, their social circle is you know, white passing or whatever. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Jenna, can I go real quick?
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
I was gonna point to either you or Will. So.
Yeah, well, and coming off of that, as a cisgendered white male, like writing characters like that, like I think I'm super sensitive at thank you to Will and LP a lot of this times where I ask him a lot of questions, and Marshall, I've been through the ring with Marshall on this one too. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm very sensitive to that because I don't want to get it wrong. And so every time I read it and it's wrong, I'm like, what the is going on? Like, how did you not? Seriously, like it pisses me off so bad. And the worst of it is like when it's a book that's getting accolades. It's New York Times bestseller. Like everyone's talking and raving about it. I'm like, that was complete shit. Like those are the things that make me mad and upset. Like I'm just gonna go off. If you want me to name a book, I'll name a book. I don't care. But like that's the thing that pisses me off the most when it comes to this stuff is like put some damn effort into it. And for those that are in my position, don't be so damn scared. Just write it and get a beta reader.
Yeah. If you're not willing to get things wrong, you're never gonna fucking learn. And also, like, if you're writing communities that you don't have friends in them to run by, like, maybe think twice about that and get some new friends. Will?
Yeah, that's like the best part.
Jenna,
new
preach.
friends.
Oh, that was awesome. I didn't expect that.
that was great, Jen. We gotta put that in quotes.
That was good.
I want to go back. Yeah, I agree. I co-sign everything that like Brent and Nick has said. It's fascinating when you can see white people put in a character and you're just like, wow, that's wow. But there's so many things I want to say, but I was like, that's a whole nother podcast. But I want to go back to the complexity of like genre, right? Of like the novellas because we mentioned the circle, the chain. I'm always saying it wrong.
The practice, the horizon, and the chain.
Yeah. About how like deep that is on like multiple different levels. And the one book and the series itself by Tade Thompson, The Murders of Molly Southbourne. I don't know if anyone's read it. Is it Tade?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. Thank you for correcting me. I thought there would be
like based on things he's put on Blue Sky, doing the accenting wrong when I say it like that too, but that's closer.
Okay, amazing. I find that book, it says so much about body autonomy, who gets to live life, identity, who are you, and is your lived experience making you the same or different than others? There's so many questions in that book, and it's so riveting, and it's horror. You know, I think that's what's also really great. There's all these different themes running throughout the book, and a lot of times people won't think that horror is something. I mean, we all know, but like, you know, the general public doesn't think horror can do this, and like that's the beauty of what that book does. So if anyone hasn't read it, they need to read it.
Cosign. So good. It's such a good series.
I have written so many academic papers on Tade Thompson's work because I think it's just really so full. And he like doesn't give a shit about genre conventions. And I love that. Like mixes genres all over the place. Like, you know, mystery on like murder mystery on a spaceship heading for a planet. And also it's a horror and it's fantastic. Like you just writes fantastic stuff. That's Far from the Light of Heaven. And you can just like tell that he's got so much that he's bringing from his day job as I think he's an emergency room psychologist. But the psychology part of it is really deep in the way that he's thinking about how people think about themselves. Anyway, I'm going off too far for a moderator here. And we haven't talked about y'all's work yet. Okay, Will, I know you've got something to say, but can I transition to you to talking about your own?
Yeah, no. I just want to mention this one book real quick.
Will is actually a really good writer, and I know he doesn't believe that all the time. But Will does character really well.
Thanks.
He's also not going to talk about his work. What are you going to say?
Well, I will in a minute. I will in a minute. But I want to bring one more book in: Kai Shanti Wilson's novellas.
Okay.
Because that book taught me the use of language in a secondary world, and like how you can take modern vernacular and put it in a story and make it sound like poetry. And there's all these different themes in there that I don't know why that man is not being praised more, or is not being praised enough, in my opinion. And I really hope there's more books coming out.
Two things.
LP, go for it. Yep.
Okay. Number one, there's a Kai Shanti Wilson novel coming.
Well, you're not benefiting from Will's face, listeners, but it's a face. He's very excited.
Brent also looked up. Yes, there's a Kai Shanti Wilson novel coming, and I am so excited for all of us to have this. What I loved about the Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps is the way that I've never seen Pan-Africanism on a page. I've never seen so many kinds of Black people in one space. And all that you had to differentiate them from each other was the way that they spoke to each other. And it was such complex character building, but also world building in this fantasy and/or science fictional setting, and it was doing so much in so little space. And like, it's another one of those ones that like plays really heavily in implication, even though the ending has a finality to it. But even though that's true, there's also a sequel. So whatever. But like, yes, Kai Shanti Wilson is that bitch.
Okay, now that we have gotten through two of my like million questions, apparently,
welcome
that
to
I
moderating,
I'm also thinking about like my next question I wanted to ask is when y'all who have all written novellas, you know, when during the process do you figure out that the story is a novella? Do you know from the beginning? Do you figure that out along the way? Do you realize it's not a novella and it's really a novel? But then also I'm thinking about, you know, what LP raised about these length restrictions and these conventions about what makes a novel distinct from a novella being relatively recent. So also, to what extent does it matter for you when you're writing? And how does that work for you? LP.
I am in the working on novellas camp. I'm still in my year of novellas because it didn't really start until June because life stuff in the
look,
spring.
If you're writing in a novella, you're writing a novella. So all of you have practice writing novellas. That's how I'll put it.
No shade. Just let me clutch these pearls.
Put the pearls down.
Pearls down. Pearls and house down. But I am also working on a novella craft book because I don't think that people have studied novellas in the same way that they study fiction broadly, right? And novella as a form. One of my favorite quotes about novellas came from Jordan Corella, who is a fantastic writer, disabled trans writer living in Ohio at the moment. And he said, after some people have been like, novellas are like long short stories or they're short novels. He was like, no, I don't think that's true because novellas, partly because he feels trepidation about writing novels. He's like, novellas that have too much padding are long short stories, and novellas that feel like you're missing something are short novels. Novellas work in the space that they have, and they make sense in the space that they have. And when I haven't been satisfied by a novella, it's because it was one of the former or the latter. It's not because it was one of the ones that like, oh, this makes sense for what it is. And I think knowing that you're working on a novella can be challenging. It's easy to know if you're working on a novella if you're writing for the Neon Hemlock call that's coming. But like, other than that, like, I think it's okay to. I think about writing in mastery, right? Like, I think I've got short stories down. I've figured out flash fiction. My natural length is novelette. Great. But I have a couple of novelettes where people are like, baby, I understand you trying to write an implication, but I don't know what's going on here. And so I was like, okay, so I guess that might be a novella. We'll see how this draft goes. But I think more than anything, it's about whether or not the story works at the length that you're trying to work it at.
Marshall?
I don't know. I think to answer your question, I have made the projects I'm working on right now, I set out to at that length because like LP said, I have a couple novelettes. I've been really struggling with short stories, and novels have been feeling very daunting for me lately, like querying my novel and stuff like that, and having these trunk things that I've been thinking about more and more. So I don't know. I think I'm literally approaching it like this is going to be a novella, and I know that I have that range to play with too. So I'm like, and I've been kind of experimenting a little with, pantsing, then outlining, and then or coming up with a idea draft document, and then pantsing, and then you know what I mean? Like, so I have these 3 projects I'm working right now that I know are going to be novella length because I've been reading a lot in that realm and feeling like that's kind of like I feel like I can get it done, tell the story I want to tell, and also not feel so overwhelmed when it comes to reorganizing, reworking, and revising it. You know what I mean? And so like I think most of the time when I set out to write something, I have the length in mind or whatever and the genre and stuff in mind, but I have to lately I've been like, okay, this is going to be a novella and this is kind of what I envision in it. And I don't know if I'm missing part of your question, but really I feel like I have to go into it knowing that. Otherwise it's just going to be something insane that eventually I'm just going to not be able to pin down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the restrictions of the form help you like solidify what you're doing, and you have room to play with. But
yeah, like the number of not necessarily the number of scenes, but number of POV characters and conflicts and things like that. Like I'm trying to focus the story on the one character dealing with a thing, but telling a full thing, a full story, but also reading Brent's work and stuff like that. How am I going to make this world building and stuff work too? You know what I mean? And the stuff I'm working on right now is like, one's like a dystopian thing, one's like a paranormal detective thing. I'm like, I don't know if I want to pull any of this off, but like, I like the idea of focusing in on just those elements and that character and telling that story and seeing if I can land somewhere between 20 and 40,000 words. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like somehow the restrictions of size are giving you room to play in a way that otherwise you might feel pressured that you have to weave things together in a certain way or do more,
I don't have to reach 90K. I can be good at 30, 25, or 40. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Nick?
Yeah, I always find this one interesting because, there's a struggle to writing novellas for sure. And I think I started back in school for our MFA. I wanted a full novel to come out of this idea, and then I realized the story was better told in novellas, and doing a novella series based on that. And that actually really helped me out focus in more and bring that scope in where I can still go deep in the world, but now I'm being in the problem that we're trying to, the problem that's presented is now more focused in, and the bigger problem I get to tell can be spread out across a couple of different books at that point, or novellas at that point, right? So it's a weird concept to me, a little bit, because it's oh, I'm only going to focus on a singular issue, but no, not really. There's a bigger issue. There's more to be told, but that's not the main focus. It's these smaller issues that can lead into that and up to that.
So it sounds like the smaller issues give you a kind of framework for propelling the way that you're reaching the bigger issue throughout the novella series.
Mm-hmm. And I do feel like in that, with this specific project I'm thinking of and referring to, it helps me dial in those impactful moments in a life that changes that main character. So now I get to change the character throughout the series and show more intimately show their growth.
Sameem?
Well, you answered it a little bit, but I had a little bit of a follow-up for Nick. I was kind of wondering, how did you realize that shift in format was necessary and was the right thing to do?
Okay. So this is an urban fantasy crime series where it follows a detective who's partnered with an otherworldly devil type person. But the reason I decided I wanted to turn it into a novella series is it goes back to my military time. There are a lot of soldiers that are killed on bases, or around bases, and it's always mishandled by the military over and over again, and it's always the same excuses. It's always the same thing. So I wanted to tackle a series around that, and bringing voices to some of these, mainly women that get mistreated even after their death from the military aspect of not having not investing the resources to solve their murders and things like that. And it was the Vanessa Guillen story that really pushed me over the edge on this one, because I've lived it. I've seen soldiers disappear. I've know of some that have been killed on base in training exercises, right? And it is a sad reality, but the Vanessa Guillen story just got shoved underneath the rug, and it really upset me at the time. And it was, how do I tell a story and drive impact while my character's changing constantly, but also the stories I kind of want to retell and approach and bring it to light a little bit. I can't do 5 or 6 in the same book or even book series, but specifically focusing in on, hey, this novella is going to focus on this crime. This is my character arc through this. That's going to end a little really muddy at the end, but then it's going to lead into the next one where it's going to pick up and he's going to start working through that. And that's kind of where I came up with that kind of structure for me. On that one is I want to retell some of these stories through this lens.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for sharing that. LP, you've been waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I think Nick just broke my brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, was it at least a good break where you're oh, Nick's really smart, or was dude, that guy's a dumbass? I could take either.
I'm really not sure that's the frame that my brain was in.
I'm going to say it's not the latter, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back, because you were talking about how you're just a white guy, and I was like, you're definitely spicy white, Salt Lake City flavored. So you got this, bro.
I would buy that bag of chips.
I don't think I would, but I think, but one of the when I leave here, I'm going to a novel writing class, and the novel that I'm working on is a time travel novel with 5 points of view. And listening to Nick talk, I'm like, and I was going to talk about novella series as well, because I think about like Shauna Maguire's The Wayward Children series, which is about a school for people who came back from Portal Fantasies and didn't want to, which I thought was really interesting. And there's like 7 or 8 books at this point. Like it was supposed to be like a trilogy or some shit. And like she just keeps going, which is like cool. But I'm like, are these 5 points of view a novella series? Interesting. Something to think about and take to people later on. But I think there's power in the capacity. If Sophia Samatar were to come along with a sequel to the Practice of the Horizon of the Chain, I would be very happy, right? Because I do have questions, but I'm also happy with where it ended. I think, and Brent brought up the Tensorate cycle before, like, and then thinking about P. Djeli Clark's series of novellas in the same world as The Master of Jinn, right? So, like, novellas can also be. I think about most writing as like a classroom for a skill that you want to learn, and novellas can be a great way to do creative research for a bigger world if you want to. And it feels sometimes when I think about Clark's work that maybe those novellas were world building to help him think and fill out the novel more. I may be wrong. I may not be wrong. But if nothing else, it fed us into that novel, introduced us to characters, and introduced us to a world. So it's like novellas can serve a lot of different purposes, not just the aspect of like, oh, well, I'm writing a novella to write a novella. Sometimes you're writing a novella to like understand what the bigger things that you're writing is. And I think that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, Will?
I want to hear from Brent because he actually published a novella. So, and like he's working on another one. So, Brent.
He also edits novellas.
And then
he also edits novellas. So there's like layers here, bitches.
Okay.
Y'all, there's going to be a part 2 to this episode. This is why.
I mean, I can let me answer, I guess, the writing part, and we can come back to the editing one maybe in the next one. So for me, I didn't really have a choice. Like I got contracted for the novella before the novella was written. So I kind of went in with like, okay, you're doing this, you're going to make it work, you're going to figure it out. And I want to say that this, and I've said it multiple times, it was not easy. It was hard as hell. Like it was many drafts, there were delays. It was, it was work. So, length aside, like I think I don't want, because I think sometimes people get this idea, and the publishing industry pushes it, that like the shorter the length, the easier the work, the easier it is to produce good work. And it's like, that's not the case. So yeah, this novella kicked my ass. I will say that. But for me, and I think Marshall kind of like asked this question too, like how do you build the world and how do you get there? I think with novellas, in any work really, but since we're on novellas, you got to kind of accept that it's going to take a lot of combing through, a lot of repetition, a lot of like going back to that work over and over again. V. Schwab has this metaphor, which I really like, and I'm really holding on to it as I go through my stuff, is that each new draft is like adding a layer of paint. And you get to, your first draft, it's not going to be what you want it to be. It's not going to have all the details you wanted to have, but you have to be willing to keep going back over and over again until, not until the work's perfect, but until you're happy enough with it to like let it go. And
like that.
Yeah, so I think for me that is the biggest thing, is just being willing to commit to it being, commit to it taking a lot of work. Because I think a lot of people check out because they don't understand that like this is going to require a lot of you, and this is going to push you. And 40,000. I will be honest, those 40,000 words, it clocked in at about 37,000. Those 37,000 words kick my ass more than finishing a novel draft. I will tell you that. So, yeah. So respect the work, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah, I appreciate you ending there too. And like Nick, you're saying that you've struggled with thinking that the first draft isn't good enough in the chat. So it's also a great way of reminding people that if you get done with your first draft and you think, okay, well, this isn't Brent Lambert's world building in a novella form, how in the world am I going to publish this? That's not where it ends, right? That's even a novella draft one is still draft one. And so don't throw it away. Trust yourselves, everybody. Well, friends, I'm really glad we're going to be returning to this topic because I had many more things that I wanted to ask. And this was also just the first round of questions that I thought we'd be asking. But I think we're going to end up talking more about LP's craft book that he's working on writing novellas, as well as Brent's publishing experience with novellas. And hopefully get Shingai on here to talk about publishing a novella as well. But yeah, we're going to come back to this. LP, do you want to throw in something before we close?
Oh yeah, I just want to throw in. You brought up the craft book that I'm working on. I just want to point out that I'm working with horror writer Kate Maruyama, who lives in Los Angeles, who's a friend of the pod and had an episode that Marshall will link to in the show notes. But yeah, and Kate's coming back, and we're going to talk together.
I was going to say, and Kate will be joining us for the episode as well.
And this has been Just Keep Writing, a podcast for writers, by writers, to keep you writing. You can find us at justkeepwriting.org. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Feel free to reach out to any of us on our social medias, and please jump in our Just Keep Writing Discord channel. Links to all of that is in the show notes. Lastly, please support our show by going to patreon.com/justkeepwriting. We offer daily writing prompts, early access to podcast episodes, and much more. Thanks for listening, and just keep writing.